FM.
All right. So, basics. This is your filter. This is your pump. Anything on the front side, valve-wise, we call the suction side. So you've got main drain, which are the two drains at the bottom of the pool. I'll show you those in a minute. You've got skimmers. Skimmers, the side basket that you pull out and you empty out every once in a while. And then more than likely, this is going to be a cleaner line. I got a clip over there. So if you got a vacuum in there, that's your cleaner line. So if you look at the valve itself, it has an off here. Inside the valve, there's a diverter. So as you turn the valve, where it says off, the diverter is closing that line. So if you have it like this, then you got, 75% of this valve closed, 100% of this valve is open. You're actually pulling more from there. Same thing for the pressure side. If you don't have any valves there, you only got one return. That's just all your jet as far as setting the time for the pull, that's on this little time clock right here. You've got your on timer pin and your off timer pin. So basically, to take it off, just unscrew it. Comes right off. This one is a little bent, so you might have to get a new one. I might have one on my truck. You go check. They might be in that, on your side, there's that little cup holder. Alright, so we're going to see if I have one of these for you. Basically, just setting it, is slide it in, time 1, make sure the little arrow points to the time, just tighten it up. This right here is the current time, wherever it's pointing down to. If you ever notice that's off, you can always pull it out, turn it. This is your manual lever, so if you want the pump to be off, you can just go ahead and turn it off, on. Alright. As far as chlorination, you've got your salt system. So once we get to this, your salt system right now, it says purifier 50%. And it's telling you 50% of the time that the pump is running, it is generating chlorine. So it uses the salt in the water, shocks it inside the cell, generates chlorine. When the chlorine gets used up, it turns back into salt and gets pumped right back to the system. The only way salt gets removed from the pool is through dilution. So if it rains, or if you lose a lot of water and you add some water in, then that's the only way you lose anything. This right here seems to be just a waste line for you guys, so you can roll that out if you got, high level in the pool and you want to drain some stuff. Just twist that valve open.
And that's all that's for? Just that? Okay.
All that's for. You always want to make sure it's off if you're not draining. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and go over how to clean the filter.
Okay.
So, always turn the pump off first. Pop the air bleed open. You'll hear it kind of suck in some air. Just give it a couple seconds. And then what you can do is on this filter, there's 2 clips on the sides. Push them in. And then twist. Set that off to the side. Sometimes this filter can be a little tricky with popping the lid off. So what I like to do is I take my foot and I just put it on the base. And then take 2 hands, lift from one side. And that's how you'll get the lid off. You can take 2 fingers, slide them into the element, push your thumbs on the middle. There's that. So it's going to take a little bit of doing it just to get used to it, but you start up at the top and you just kind of go slowly down, and you can go in between each pleat if you want to, but as long as you're getting the majority of it and then it's coming out clear at the bottom. Sometimes I like to do it on the cement so you can actually see, but as long as you're getting clear water coming out of the bottom and it's not all dirty, then you're good. Good ways to tell if your filter is starting to go bad. These are broken. If these are starting to break and tear, then definitely almost time to replace. Or if it's starting to look very accordion style on the bottom where the filter's kind of caving in on itself, that's definitely a sign that you need to get a new filter.
How often should you clean the filter?
So for the cartridge filter, you want to clean this element once every 2 weeks.
Okay.
And that's a very generous amount of time. If you wait too long, you'll build up enough pressure in there, and the system won't operate correctly because the pump wants to push through all this, debris and stuff, and it's just restricting the flow.
Okay.
You guys know about the chemicals and stuff in the pool. So basically, there are a couple chemicals that you add to a pool. Obviously, first things first is chlorine. Chlorine is the sanitizer for the pool. Since you are a salt system, you will need to check on stabilizer. So stabilizer is, if you were using chlorine tablets are stabilized chlorine. And it holds the chlorine in the water, and it doesn't let it evaporate through sunlight and everything. But since you're a salt system, it doesn't generate stabilized chlorine, it generates unstabilized chlorine. So you add the stabilizer in to keep from the chlorine evaporating out. And, if your salt system was working at 100% and you still didn't have any chlorine, I would check your stabilizer always. You've got also calcium. Calcium is what keeps your water's hardness, and as long as you're adding calcium and keep it at the right levels, you won't notice where your surface is going to start pitting, because if you don't have enough calcium in your water, it'll actually start drawing it from the walls of the pool.
Oh.
Also, you want to check on alkalinity. The alkalinity is basically the reverse of your acidity in the pool. So it's either more basic or more acidic. Alkalinity raises the pH. Acid lowers the pH. So really, whenever you're adding alkalinity, you want to make sure that your pH is good. And are you guys going to be testing in the shop with us?
At least for a while.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
So that's what we usually recommend is, just come in, get a test. It's free. So we'll usually give you a write-up and tell you exactly what you need.
And tell us what bottles you have to buy. Or whatever.
Super easy, yeah. So, and, we were maintaining the pool, right?
Yep.
So we'll have everything you need to know about your pool on the system. How many gallons it is, all that. So, anything else as far as chemicals go? Basically, I would also just have the shop, anytime that you go in to test, just test for salt, because you are a salt system. The salt system needs a specific range of parts per million of salt in the water in order for it to generate chlorine. I can give you that range here in just a minute once I'm done with this, because I have all of them written down for this purpose.
How do we take the water sample in, and how much do we take?
So, first thing, if you've never done a water sample before, take just a regular water bottle,
Okay, yeah.
empty it out,
Mhm.
kind of rinse it out a little bit, elbow deep.
Okay.
Make sure the system's been running for an hour at least before
Okay.
you do it, and then fill the whole water bottle.
Okay.
And then once you go in for that first time, they'll give you a bottle
Oh.
that you can test with, and it's the perfect amount for us. Just always elbow deep, make sure the system's been running.
Okay. You want to try some questions?
Telling you about the stabilizer, alkalinity, pH, chlorine, and salt. Those are all going to be the things that you want to test for. So as long as it tests for all of those,
Okay.
also calcium as well, then you should be good.
Okay.
Um,
I'm sure that won't happen for a
grab
while.
some lube. So on all your systems, you have O-rings, you know? So I'm gonna have him grab some lube. Basically, anytime you take this lid off, just put a little bit of lube on there because you're taking it off every, 2 weeks or so. Just kind of hydrate that. Otherwise, it'll start to crack, and then you'll notice filter's starting to leak from around the lid, or anywhere that there is a joint, there's more than likely an O-ring. So O-ring in there, O-ring in there, O-ring in there. Inside the valves, there's O-rings. If you ever notice anything leaking, more than likely O-ring. So you can always take pictures, videos, come up to the shop, just let us know what's leaking, what's going on. I'm gonna have him bring some of that so we can make sure you guys are started off right, while he's doing that. Anytime that you guys go to turn on the light, I know you got a new light because we ended up pulling that, right?
Yep.
If for some reason the light doesn't come on, check this guy right here, your GFI outlet.
Okay.
So every light is tied into a GFI outlet as a safety precaution. So if you come out here and you untrip this and for some reason the light's still not coming on, then there's a problem, unless once you go in here, this is your breaker box. Yeah,
Please don't take that.
this
from me.
one's this one's awful because it breaks like that.
Yeah.
Just check and make sure all your breakers are on
Okay.
as well, because if a breaker's tripped and the GFI isn't tripped, then that's your problem. So he went ahead and lubed that.
You just slather it on just a little bit.
Yeah,
Little
less
bit.
is more usually.
Okay.
So as long as it's kind of smooth to the touch and feels pretty good. Usually the way I want to set the air bleed is away from the pump. You'd never really want to put a bunch of chlorinated water right on top of the pump, because over time it will corrode out the motor and just kind of kill anything electrical.
Okay.
So you always want to push down on it, make sure it's kind of flush all the way around. And you take this, set it on. I always like to back spin it for a couple times until you hear that click, and then you spin it, and once it's clicked in, it's not going anywhere. So on startup, you always want to have the air bleed open. So whenever you turn the pump on, you'll hear it kind of hiss, and you just wait until that happens, and then you can close it. So what that does is it releases all the air out of the system, because air compresses a lot better than water does. So what can happen is all that air that was filling the tank, it'll compress right here, and it'll create a lot of pressure. And if something were to happen, if you just continued to do that and over time just got weaker and weaker, you do have an older unit here, so it's starting to kind of come off. You could shoot the lid off if you don't properly do it. So, always make sure that you're shooting water out of there and then you close it. So we'll go ahead and set this back to the right time.
How loud the pump is? Is that normal?
Yeah.
Usually about that loud?
Yeah, so if you start hearing it screaming or whining or anything, then there's a problem. More than likely the bearings are starting to go out, or the motor itself, the shaft is starting to corrode. If you ever notice any wet spot anywhere around here, just kind of